My name is Matilda Anderson, 32 years old, sitting at LaGuardia Airport with my economy boarding pass in hand. My sister Lisa snapped a photo of my ticket and sent it to our family group chat. My phone lit up with notifications. Ping, ping, ping. Messages rolled in. Jokes, laughing emojis. Pity wrapped in sarcasm. I just smiled watching Lisa smirk. Then a tall man in a captain uniform approached. "Miss Matilda, your private flight is ready." The color drained from Lisa's face. "Where are you watching from today?" Drop a comment and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had a moment where silence was your best revenge. The Andersons. A name that carried weight in Manhattan real estate circles. My father James, a second-generation property developer, who turned his father's modest construction company into a multi-million-dollar empire. My mother Eleanor, a former debutante from old money, who married into new money, and never let anyone forget either fact. Together they created the perfect family image in their Upper East Side mansion with 3 perfect children and one, well, me. Lisa, 35, the golden daughter. Harvard Law School graduate turned corporate attorney at one of New York's most prestigious firms. Married to Richard, an investment banker whose family connections rivaled our own. 2 perfect children attending the same exclusive private school she once did. A summer home in the Hamptons, just 3 properties down from our parents. Lisa never wore the same designer outfit twice, and documented each acquisition on her meticulously curated social media accounts. Marcus, 37, the brilliant son. Johns Hopkins Medical School followed by a surgical residency at Mayo Clinic. Now a cardiothoracic surgeon whose patients included celebrities and foreign dignitaries. His wife Stephanie, a pediatric oncologist, completed their power couple image. They lived in a penthouse with views of Central Park, traveled to medical conferences in exotic locations, and donated just enough to charity to maintain their philanthropic image without affecting their lifestyle. Then there was Ryan, 30, the baby of the family. The one who never quite had to work as hard because everything was handed to him. Princeton undergraduate, Wharton MBA, then straight into managing a small investment fund my father created specifically for him. Ryan drove Italian sports cars, dated models, and spent more on watches than most people spent on rent. He lived in a loft in Tribeca that my parents purchased for him as a graduation gift. And me, Matilda, the middle child, the disappointment, the one who chose State University over Ivy League, the one who studied hospitality management instead of law, medicine, or finance, the one who moved out at 22 and refused financial support, the one who missed family photos because I was working holidays, the one whose name was mentioned with sighs and head shakes. I remember my father's 60th birthday party 5 years ago. It was the last family gathering I attended before today. The event was held at the Plaza Hotel with over 200 guests from New York's social elite. Lisa had just returned from a month touring European wine regions and dominated conversation with stories about private tastings at chateaus not open to the public. The owner of Chateau Margaux personally showed us the cellar she boasted, swirling champagne in her glass. He said he rarely does tours, but he made an exception when Richard mentioned his investment firm handles their American acquisitions. My mother beamed with pride. Lisa always did know how to make the right connections. Marcus chimed in with an anecdote about performing emergency surgery on a foreign diplomat, careful to omit any identifying details while making it clear this patient was extraordinarily important. Ryan showed off photos of his new Aston Martin purchased after what he called a lucky break on a tech stock, but what I knew was simply my father funneling another bonus to him through the family business. "And what about you, Matilda?" Aunt Catherine asked during a lull in the conversation. Still working at that hotel. Her tone made it clear she considered my job temporary, a phase, before I came to my senses and rejoined the family business. "Actually, I moved to a new position with an airline," I said. "Oh." My mother's expression soured slightly. "Customer service, I presume." "In a way," I replied. "I handle passenger experience." Lisa laughed. "So you check people in and handle complaints about lost luggage." "Something like that," I said, not bothering to correct her assumptions. My father patted my hand condescendingly. "Well, At least you are supporting yourself. Independence builds character. At least she finally graduated college, my mother added as though this was a grand accomplishment at 27. The implied comparison to my siblings graduating from elite universities hung in the air. I excused myself early from that party, hailed a cab back to my modest apartment in Astoria, and made a decision. I would build my life away from the shadow of my family name. I would define success on my terms. And I would protect my peace by maintaining distance. For 5 years I managed exactly that. Limited contact, brief calls on holidays, deflected invitations with work obligations. Then, last month, the call came. My parents were celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary. A grand event at their Hamptons estate. Attendance was not optional. Family image had to be maintained. My first instinct was to refuse. Invent a work emergency. Book a vacation somewhere remote. But then I realized something. Perhaps it was time to return. Not as the Matilda they expected, but as the woman I had become. With a secret they would never see coming. Growing up as Matilda Anderson meant living in the shadow of extraordinary expectations. From my earliest memories, comparisons were constant and crushing. Lisa brought home straight, as from Dalton School, while I struggled with reading comprehension. Marcus won science fairs with projects my father helped him build, while my art projects were relegated to the junk drawer. Ryan, despite being younger, surpassed me in mathematics and was labeled the natural business mind of the family. My 10th grade parent-teacher conference remains seared in my memory. Miss Winters, my English teacher, enthusiastically showed my parents a short story I had written about a girl who traveled the world collecting stories from strangers. Matilda has a remarkable gift for narrative and emotional insight, she said, her eyes bright with genuine appreciation for my work. This story shows tremendous promise. I believe she could pursue creative writing at a collegiate level. My mother's smile remained fixed, but her eyes cooled. That's lovely, but Matilda will be pursuing pre-law like her sister. Creative writing might make a pleasant hobby, but it is hardly a career path for an Anderson. My father nodded in agreement. Reading fiction is fine for relaxation, but writing it is not a productive use of time. We need to focus on practical skills that translate to real-world success. I sat silent, watching my passion being dismissed as frivolous. That night I cried into my pillow morning dreams. I had barely allowed myself to acknowledge. By senior year the battle lines were drawn. My parents had my life mapped out: Columbia undergraduate, then law school, followed by a position at a firm where my father had connections. I had different plans. The brochure for the School of Hospitality Management at Cornell sat hidden under my mattress like contraband. I applied in secret, using money saved from a summer job to pay the application fee. When the acceptance letter came along with a modest merit scholarship, I finally gathered the courage to tell my parents. Hospitality management. My father repeated the words as though I had said underwater basket weaving. You want to learn how to fold towels and check people into hotel rooms. The program covers business operations, marketing, finance, and organizational leadership, I explained. Cornell's program is one of the best in the country. If you want to study business, Wharton would be appropriate, my mother countered. This hotel school is beneath your capabilities and our family standing. The argument escalated. Voices raised, ultimatums delivered. In the end, my father delivered his verdict. If you insist on this ridiculous path, you will do so without our financial support. I accepted their terms. My scholarship covered part of the tuition. Student loans and work-study programs covered the rest. I moved into a cramped dorm room while Lisa lived in a luxury apartment paid for by our parents. I worked evenings at the campus cafe, while Marcus focused exclusively on academics. I budget managed my meal plan while Ryan received monthly deposits into his checking account labeled entertainment expenses. 4 years later, I graduated summa cum laude. Neither of my parents attended the ceremony. Lisa sent a generic congratulations text. Marcus was too busy with his residency. Ryan was on a spring break trip to Ibiza. My first job was at a boutique hotel in Manhattan, working the front desk. The starting salary barely covered my rent in a 3-bedroom apartment I shared with 2 other recent graduates in Washington Heights. I ate ramen noodles and worked double shifts to make student loan payments. I took the subway while my siblings took Ubers or had drivers. After a year of building my reputation for unflappable customer service and attention to detail, I applied for a position as a flight attendant with Trans-American Airways. The job offered better pay benefits and, most importantly, flight privileges that would allow me to see the world on my days off. It was on a first-class cabin service from New York to Los Angeles that I met Jack Reynolds. Not that I recognized him immediately. He was just another passenger in 3 Amperes, quietly working on his laptop, politely declining alcohol, but requesting extra sparkling water with lime. It was when turbulence hit unexpectedly over Denver that everything changed. The plane dropped suddenly, drinks spilled, a woman screamed, a child began crying, and Mr. Reynolds' laptop flew from his tray table, landing with a crack in the aisle. I retrieved it quickly, noting the shattered screen and the look of genuine distress on his face. "Sir, I am so sorry about your computer," I said, handing him the damaged device. "It is not your fault," he replied, "but I had a presentation on there that I need for a meeting immediately after landing. The file was not backed up yet." Instead of offering empty condolences, I took initiative. "What format is the presentation in? I may be able to help." He looked surprised but explained it was a PowerPoint file. I quickly retrieved my own personal tablet from my crew bag and offered it to him. "If you have the file in your email or cloud storage, you could access it here. We have about 3 hours left in the flight. I can give you privacy to rebuild what you need." His eyebrows rose. "You would lend me your personal device?" I smiled. "Of course, passenger experience is my priority." That moment of basic human kindness and professionalism changed the trajectory of my career. Jack Reynolds, as I would later learn, was not just any businessman. He was the founder and CEO of Reynolds Aviation, a company that provided private jet services to corporations, celebrities, and high-net-worth individuals. The presentation he needed to rebuild was for a meeting with potential investors to expand his fleet. After landing, he returned my tablet with a genuine thank you and his business card. "If you ever consider a change in employment, call me directly," he said. "I need people with your problem-solving skills and dedication to customer care." 3 months later, I took him up on that offer. My starting position at Reynolds Aviation was as a client experience coordinator, a role that combined my hospitality background with my aviation experience. My salary doubled overnight. For the first time, I could afford a studio apartment without roommates. I could make extra payments on my student loans. I could buy new clothes instead of thrift store finds. More importantly, I found a place where my natural empathy and attention to detail were valued rather than dismissed as soft skills. Jack became not just a boss, but a mentor who saw potential in me that my own family had overlooked. My role at Reynolds Aviation expanded rapidly as Jack discovered my aptitude for anticipating needs and managing complex logistics. Within 6 months, I was promoted to Senior Client Relations Manager, responsible for coordinating private flights for some of the most demanding clients in our portfolio. These were not ordinary passengers. They were Fortune 500 CEOs who needed absolute discretion for corporate takeovers. Hollywood. A-listers escaping paparazzi. Tech billionaires with security concerns. Foreign dignitaries traveling unofficially. Each had specific requirements that went far beyond the standard first-class experience. One client required specific water imported from a particular spring in Norway. Another needed their cabin temperature set to precisely 68 degrees Fahrenheit. A famous director would only fly if we stocked his favorite whiskey and a specific brand of Japanese stationery. A tech CEO required all flight crew to sign NDAs before he would discuss business calls in the air. I handled each request with diplomatic efficiency, never revealing my surprise at their demands or the lengths we went to accommodate them. I built a reputation for unflappable composure and flawless execution. After 2 years of exceeding every performance metric, Jack called me into his office. The view from his corner suite overlooked the Manhattan skyline, a far cry from the windowless cubicle where I had started. "Matilda, I am promoting you to Director of Client Experience, he announced without preamble. You will oversee a team of 20 coordinators and have signing authority on contracts up to $1 million. I stared at him, processing the implications. That is a significant jump in responsibility. He nodded, with a corresponding jump in compensation. Base salary of $200,000 plus performance bonuses and equity options. The figure made me dizzy. It was more than Lisa made as an associate attorney, despite her Ivy League credentials and family connections. More than my father had ever offered to pay me in the family business. Why me? I asked, genuinely curious. Jack leaned back in his chair. Because you understand something fundamental that many in this industry miss. Luxury is not about gold fixtures and champagne. It is about making people feel seen, understood, and cared for at a human level. You have that gift. Another 3 years passed. My client list grew to include names that appeared on the covers of business magazines and entertainment tabloids. I traveled to Dubai to coordinate a sheikh's travel arrangements. I flew to Tokyo to personally oversee the installation of custom cabin features for a Japanese industrialist. I managed the logistical nightmare of getting an entire rock band and their equipment from Sydney to Rio de Janeiro on a tight timeline. My title changed again, Vice President of Global Operations. My compensation package now included substantial stock options that, following a partial IPO of Reynolds Aviation, were worth 7 figures on paper. I bought a spacious apartment in Tribeca, not far from where my brother Ryan lived, though he had no idea I was practically his neighbor. Through it all, I maintained my policy of privacy regarding my professional success. My family still believed I worked in some middle management customer service role at some airline company. They assumed I struggled financially. They had no concept that I now flew private more often than commercial, that I had dined in Michelin-starred restaurants around the world, that my client list included people they read about and admired from afar. It was not about planning a dramatic revelation. It was about protecting my peace. Every time I considered sharing my success, I remembered the dismissive comments, the condescending pats on the head, the assumption that my path was inferior. The longer I kept my achievement to myself, the more I realized I did not need their validation. I was proud of what I had built with or without their acknowledgement. Then Michael entered my life. Captain Michael Thornton, chief pilot for Reynolds Aviation's flagship Gulfstream G650. Tall with salt and pepper hair that belied his 40 years and smile lines that crinkled when he laughed. We met during a client emergency that required rerouting a flight last minute due to a security concern. What impressed me was not just his skill in handling the complex aviation logistics, but his calm demeanor and genuine concern for the client's comfort during the disruption. Our professional relationship evolved into friendship over late-night planning sessions and early morning flight preparations. Friendship became attraction, acknowledged in small moments, his hand lingering when passing flight documents, my laughter coming more easily at his subtle jokes, both of us finding reasons to be in the same city despite our global responsibilities. Our first official date was in Paris, where we both happened to be for work. We walked along the Seine talking for hours about our backgrounds, dreams, and philosophies on life. I told him about my family, the pressure and expectations, the decision to forge my own path. He shared his journey from Air Force pilot to commercial aviation, to private flights, his divorce from a wife who could not handle his travel schedule, his passion for flying that never diminished despite thousands of hours in the Brady of flight's cockpit. "You know what I admire about you," he said, as we watched the Eiffel Tower light up the night sky. "You never try to impress anyone. In an industry built on appearance and status symbols, you remain genuine." His observation struck me deeply because it reflected a conscious choice I had made after years of watching my family chase external validation. As our relationship deepened over the subsequent months, Michael became the only person outside of work who knew the full extent of my professional success. He understood why I kept it private from my family and respected my decision, though he occasionally questioned it. "Are you protecting your peace, or are you punishing them by withholding this part of your life?" he asked one night, as we shared takeout in my apartment. His flight uniform hung neatly in my closet next to my business suits. I considered his question seriously. Maybe both, I finally admitted. But I am not ready to blur the boundary I have established. When the invitation arrived for my parents' 40th anniversary celebration, Michael supported my decision to attend, but questioned my plan to maintain the charade. "You have nothing to prove to them," he said. "I know," I replied. "But I am curious what would happen if they saw the real me, not the version of me they have constructed in their minds." That conversation sparked an idea, one that grew into a plan. A small test, an experiment in perception. I would book an economy ticket on a commercial flight to the same destination where my family would be traveling. I would allow them to see this, and draw their usual conclusions about my financial situation. And then when the moment was right, the truth would be revealed. Michael agreed to play his part in what he called my grand unveiling, though he warned me not to expect transformative changes in family dynamics built over decades. "Just promise me one thing," he said, holding my gaze intently. "No matter how they react, remember that your value does not depend on their recognition of it." I nodded, knowing he was right. This was not about seeking approval after all these years. It was about finally allowing my full self to be seen for better or worse. The morning of my parents' anniversary celebration dawned bright and clear, a perfect June day for flying. I packed, methodically selecting a simple but elegant black dress for the party and comfortable clothes for the journey. In a velvet box tucked into my carry-on, I had placed my gift, a rare first edition of my father's favorite novel that had taken months to track down through a specialist book dealer. My phone rang just as I was doing a final check of my luggage. Jack Reynolds' name flashed on the screen. "Matilda, good morning," his voice came through clearly. "Just confirming you are all set for the Hampton flight this afternoon." "Yes, thank you again for the use of the jet," I replied. "It is incredibly generous." "Nonsense," Jack dismissed. "You have earned every perk this company offers and then some. Besides, the G650 needs to do a maintenance check flight anyway. Might as well have it go somewhere useful." There was a pause before he added, "Have you told your family yet about your actual position here?" I smiled ruefully. "Not yet, but today might change that." "Well, they are in for quite a surprise then," Jack chuckled. "Michael is already at the hangar doing pre-flight checks. He seems particularly invested in this trip for some reason." I felt a warmth spread through me at the mention of Michael's preparations. "He is a consummate professional," I said, neutrally maintaining our still private relationship status with my boss. "Indeed he is," Jack agreed. "Enjoy your weekend, Matilda. You have earned it." As I ended the call, my phone pinged with a text from Lisa. "Reminder party starts at 7. Do not be late, like last Christmas. What time does your flight land?" I texted back, "Landing at 4:30. We'll take a car service to the house." Her response came quickly. "Car service, on your budget. Just take the family car. Dad is sending it for me and Ryan anyway." I did not bother explaining that my car service would be the chauffeured Mercedes that Reynolds Aviation provided to all executive team members. Instead, I simply replied, "I will make my own arrangements. See you there." The trip to LaGuardia was uneventful. I had deliberately chosen to enter through the main terminal rather than the private aviation facility I typically used. I checked in at the economy counter for a flight I had no intention of taking, receiving a boarding pass that would serve as a prop in the scene about to unfold. I spotted Lisa before she saw me. She stood at the premium check-in counter, her Louis Vuitton luggage arranged artfully around her designer sunglasses, perched on her perfectly highlighted hair, despite being indoors. She was speaking loudly into her phone, her voice carrying across the terminal. "Yes, Richard. I told Carter we expect at least a $2 million settlement. Their initial offer is insulting for a client of his caliber." I wheeled my carry-on toward her, purposefully selecting a nondescript black suitcase rather than the custom leather luggage Jack had given the executive team last Christmas. Lisa's eyes widened slightly when she spotted me, a quick up-and-down assessment taking in my simple jeans and blouse, noting the lack of visible designer labels. "Maddie," she said, air kissing near my cheek while still holding her phone. "Let me call you back, Richard." She ended the call and tucked the latest iPhone Pro Max into her Hermes bag. "You actually showed up." I told Mom you would probably back out last minute with some work emergency. I promised I would come, I said simply. I keep my promises. Her eyes dropped to my economy boarding pass, which I had deliberately left visible in my hand. Her lips curved into a slight smirk. Still flying coach? After what? 5 years at this job? They must not value you very highly. The barb was delivered with practiced precision, designed to seem like casual observation, while carrying a clear message: you are not successful by our standards. I shrugged. It gets me where I need to go. Well, I just got upgraded to first class, Lisa announced, flashing her boarding pass. Richard's company has a corporate arrangement with the airline. The perks of being married to someone successful. She emphasized the last word slightly. Congratulations, I said mildly. Lisa frowned slightly at my lack of reaction. She had expected either defensiveness or envy, not calm acceptance. Are you checking that? She asked, pointing to my carry-on with a manicured finger. We could catch up in the lounge if you wanted to pay for day access. It is only $50. The false generosity was another calculated move. She knew $50 was a significant expense for someone she believed was living paycheck to paycheck. I will keep it with me, I replied. And I will just wait at the gate. Lisa's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Suit yourself. I need to make use of my lounge access. Those free mimosas are not going to drink themselves. We made our way through security, Lisa, expressing exaggerated impatience at having to remove her shoes like everyone else, despite her first-class ticket. Once through, she headed toward the premium lounge, while I followed at a distance, knowing she would claim a seat near the glass partition where she could be seen by those walking past. I settled into a chair in the main terminal area with a clear view of the lounge entrance. Right on schedule, I saw Lisa take out her phone and point it in my direction, pretending to take a selfie while actually capturing me, sitting in the general boarding area with my economy ticket. Within minutes, my phone began buzzing with notifications from our family group chat. Ryan, poor Maddie, still slumming it in Coach Lowell Marcus. Some careers just have limited advancement potential. Mom, Matilda, do you need us to upgrade your ticket? Your father would not mind. Dad, let her be. Independence builds character. The familiar mixture of mockery and condescending concern scrolled across my screen. 5 years ago, these messages would have stung. Today, they merely confirmed I had made the right choice, keeping certain aspects of my life private. I did not respond to any of the messages. Instead, I texted Michael. Lisa took the bait. Are we on schedule? His response came quickly. Final checks complete. Ready when you are. I glanced at my watch. 20 minutes until our planned revelation. I took a deep breath, feeling a curious mix of anticipation and calm. This was not about revenge or showmanship. It was about finally allowing myself to be seen completely without the filter of their expectations or my own protective barriers. Through the glass, I could see Lisa watching me, a satisfied expression on her face as she sipped her complimentary champagne. She had no idea what was coming, and for just a moment, I felt a twinge of compassion for her. How exhausting it must be to constantly rank yourself and others based on external markers of success. I closed my eyes briefly and centered myself. When I opened them, I was ready for the next act to begin. The terminal buzz faded into background noise as I watched the minute hand on my watch tick toward our prearranged time. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael entering main terminal now. I looked up toward the security checkpoint and saw him. Captain Michael Thornton in full uniform, his bearing military straight captain's hat tucked under one arm. The Reynolds Aviation insignia gleamed on his perfectly pressed navy jacket. Even from a distance, he cut an impressive figure, drawing glances from travelers who automatically respected the authority his uniform projected. I remained seated, watching as he scanned the terminal. Our eyes met briefly, and the slight nod he gave was imperceptible to anyone but me. He began walking purposefully in my direction, his path taking him directly past the premium lounge where Lisa Saturday. Through the glass partition, I saw the moment Lisa noticed him. Her posture straightened slightly, her eyes tracking his movement with instinctive interest in someone who clearly represented status and authority. Her expression changed to confusion when she realized he was heading toward the general seating area, toward me. Michael stopped directly in front of my seat, his professional demeanor perfectly maintained, despite the slight twinkle in his eye that only I could detect. "Miss Matilda Anderson?" he asked formally. "Yes, that is me," I replied, standing. He gave a respectful nod. "I am Captain Thornton. Your private aircraft is prepared and ready for departure. Mr. Reynolds sends his personal regards and wishes you a pleasant journey." From the corner of my eye, I could see Lisa nearly spill her drink. Her mouth had fallen open in an expression of utter shock. Around us, other travelers glanced over with interest at this unexpected scene playing out in the public terminal. "Thank you, Captain," I said, maintaining the formal tone while fighting the urge to smile at the absurdity of pretending we were strangers. "Is the car ready to transport us to the aircraft?" "Yes, ma'am. Our ground staff will handle your luggage. The vehicle is waiting curbside whenever you are ready." At that moment, Lisa appeared at my elbow, her expression a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "Maddie, what is happening?" she demanded in a hushed voice. "Private aircraft, Reynolds. What is this about?" I turned to her with a calm smile. "Hello, Lisa. This is Captain Thornton. He will be flying me to the Hamptons today." Michael extended his hand professionally. "Miss Anderson, a pleasure to meet you." Lisa shook his hand automatically, still staring at me. "I do not understand. You just showed me your economy ticket." "A small misdirection," I acknowledged. "I never intended to take that flight." "But how can you afford a private jet?" Lisa asked, her voice rising slightly. "Are you in some kind of trouble? Is this some strange service the airline you work for provides?" I considered various responses ranging from continued evasion to full disclosure. In the end, I opted for simple truth. "I am the Executive Vice President of Global Operations for Reynolds Aviation," I said quietly. "I have been for the past 2 years." Lisa blinked rapidly, processing this information. "Reynolds Aviation, the private jet company. The one that flies celebrities and billionaires around." "That is correct." "But you said you worked in customer service for an airline." "I do work in aviation, and I do handle client experiences," I replied. "I just omitted certain details about my position and responsibilities." Lisa's expression cycled through disbelief, confusion, and the beginning stages of calculation as she reassessed everything she thought she knew about me. "Why would you hide this?" she demanded, a note of accusation in her tone. "Why let us think you were struggling financially all these years?" I met her gaze steadily. I found it easier to maintain boundaries with the family when you all had certain assumptions about my life. It allowed me the space to build my career without constant comparisons or unsolicited advice. Captain Thornton cleared his throat discreetly. "Miss Matilda, I do not wish to rush you, but we have a departure slot to maintain." "Of course, Michael," I said, dropping the formality momentarily. "Just one moment." I turned back to Lisa. "Would you like to join me? We are both going to the same place after all." The invitation clearly caught her off guard. For a moment, vulnerability flashed across her features, a glimpse of the sister I had once been close to before family dynamics and expectations drove us apart. Then her expression hardened again. "I already have my ticket," she said stiffly. "First class. Richard arranged it." "Of course," I nodded, not pushing the issue. "I will see you at the house then." As Captain Thornton escorted me toward the exit, I glanced back once to see Lisa still standing where we had left her, phone clutched in her hand, watching us depart. I wondered if she was already texting the family group chat with this unexpected development, or if for once she was keeping information to herself while she processed it. The black Mercedes with tinted windows waited exactly where Michael had promised. A uniformed driver opened the door as we approached. "Your luggage has already been transferred to the aircraft, Miss Anderson," he informed me. Once inside the privacy of the vehicle, Michael finally broke into a genuine smile. That went exactly according to plan. "Her face, when you called my name," I said, allowing myself to laugh now that the tension had broken. I have never seen Lisa speechless before. "You were remarkably composed," Michael observed, reaching over to take my hand. "How do you feel?" I considered the question carefully. Lighter, I finally decided. like I have set down a heavy suitcase I have been carrying for years. The drive to the private aviation terminal took less than 10 minutes. As we approached the sleek Gulfstream G650 waiting on the tarmac, its polished exterior gleaming in the afternoon sun, I felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with the luxury it represented. This aircraft symbolized the world I had built for myself through hard work and determination without family connections or advantages. Michael squeezed my hand before resuming his captain's persona as we exited the vehicle. "Welcome aboard, Miss Anderson," he said formally as we climbed the stairs to the cabin. Inside, the aircraft was configured with its standard luxury appointments: butter soft leather seats, polished wood accents, crystal glassware, secured in custom cabinetry. But Jack had added a personal touch, a small arrangement of my favorite flowers, with a handwritten note: "Give them hell, Matilda. You have earned this moment." As Michael disappeared into the cockpit to begin pre-flight procedures, I settled into my seat and gazed out the window at the commercial terminal in the distance. Somewhere in there, Lisa was still processing what she had witnessed. Soon the rest of the family would learn that the narrative they had constructed about me was fundamentally flawed. I was not anxious about their reactions. For the first time in my life, I was approaching a family gathering without dreading their judgment. Because regardless of how they responded to this revelation, I knew exactly who I was and what I had achieved. Their validation or lack thereof could no longer define me. The engines rumbled to life and Michael's voice came over the intercom. "Miss Anderson, we are cleared for departure to East Hampton. Our flight time today will be approximately 30 minutes. Please make yourself comfortable." As the private jet taxied toward the runway, leaving behind the commercial flights with their cramped seats and processed meals, I closed my eyes and allowed myself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Not because I was flying private while Lisa sat in commercial first class, but because I had finally found the courage to be fully myself in every aspect of my life. The Gulfstream touched down smoothly at East Hampton Airport, a facility I knew well from arranging countless client arrivals over the years. As the aircraft taxied to a stop at the private aviation section, I peered through the window to see a black Mercedes S-Class waiting on the tarmac, another courtesy from Jack Reynolds, who insisted on providing door-to-door service for his executives. Michael emerged from the cockpit as the engines spooled down. Out of his captain's role now, he approached and sat beside me. 34 minutes gate to gate, he said with professional pride. "A new record for the route." "Show off," I teased, nudging his shoulder gently. His expression grew more serious. "Are you sure you do not want me to come with you to the house? I could be moral support." I considered his offer, tempted by the thought of having his steady presence beside me, but this was something I needed to do alone. "I appreciate the offer, but this is a conversation that has been 5 years in the making. I think I need to handle it myself." He nodded, understanding without offense. "I will wait here then. Text me if you need an extraction. I can have us airborne in 20 minutes if things go south." My hero, I smiled, leaning in to kiss him briefly. "But I think I will be okay regardless of how it goes." "I know you will," he said with conviction. "Call me when you are ready to head back to the city." The drive from the airport to my parents' Hamptons estate took 15 minutes, winding through increasingly exclusive neighborhoods until reaching the oceanfront properties that represented the pinnacle of East Coast luxury real estate. The house came into view, a sprawling shingle-style mansion with perfectly manicured grounds and a circular driveway already filled with high-end vehicles belonging to early arriving guests. I instructed the driver to drop me at the side entrance, preferring to slip in quietly rather than make a grand entrance. The housekeeper who answered my knock gasped in surprise. "Miss Matilda, we were not expecting you for hours yet." "Hello, Mrs. Peterson," I greeted the woman who had known me since childhood. "I caught an earlier flight. Your mother is in the sunroom with the florist. Your father is in his study, reviewing his anniversary speech. The other guests will not arrive until 6. I thanked her and made my way through the familiar hallways, noting new artwork and updated furnishings, but recognizing the essential unchanged quality of the space. This house, like my parents themselves, maintained a steadfast commitment to tradition and appearances while allowing only cosmetic updates. My mother's voice carried from the sunroom her tone, displaying the polite but firm insistence I knew so well. No, the orchids must be positioned higher in the arrangements. They are the focal point and should draw the eye upward. And please ensure the lighting highlights them properly when the sun sets. I paused in the doorway, observing her in her element, directing, perfecting, orchestrating the environment to project exactly the image she desired. My throat tightened unexpectedly. Despite our differences, there was something admirable about her unwavering vision and attention to detail, qualities I had inherited and redirected into my own career. She turned and saw me, her perfectly composed features registering momentary surprise before settling into a practiced smile. "Matilda, you are hours early. Did something happen with your flight?" "Hello, Mother, you could say that." She dismissed the florist with a wave and approached to offer her customary air kiss near my cheek. "You look well. That blouse is quite nice. Is it new?" "Relatively," I answered, not mentioning it was Armani, and cost more than she would expect me to spend on an entire wardrobe. "Well, it suits you. Now, how did you manage to arrive before Lisa? She texted that her flight was on time and she had first class." "I took an alternate route," I said carefully. She gave me a puzzled look before moving on to practical matters. "Your room is prepared upstairs, the blue guest room. Ryan will be in the green room, and Marcus and Stephanie have the guest suite. Lisa and Richard have their usual room, of course." I nodded, not bothering to mention I had no intention of staying overnight. "Is Dad available? I would like to say hello to him as well." "He is finalizing his speech, but I am sure he would welcome a break. You know how he agonizes over public speaking." She paused, studying me more carefully. "You seem different, Matilda. More assured somehow." 5 years can change a person," I replied. "Indeed." She seemed about to say more when her phone chimed. She glanced at the screen. "How odd. Lisa is asking if you arrived yet. She says there is something important the family needs to discuss." So Lisa had decided to share what she had witnessed at the airport. Interesting. Why do not we find Dad and have that discussion now before the other guests arrive? 20 minutes later, the core Anderson family assembled in my father's wood-paneled study. My father sat behind his desk, my mother perched on a leather armchair nearby. Ryan lounged on the window seat, scrolling through his phone until my mother shot him a pointed look. Marcus and Stephanie had not yet arrived from the city. The door opened, and Lisa entered with Richard, trailing behind her. She stopped abruptly when she saw me. "You are already here," she stated flatly. "As you can see," I replied calmly. My father looked between us, sensing tension. Lisa mentioned there was something we needed to discuss as a family. "Is everything all right?" Lisa took a seat, smoothing her skirt with deliberate movements. "Matilda has apparently been keeping secrets from all of us. Major secrets." All eyes turned to me, my mother's brow furrowed with concern. "Matilda, are you in some kind of trouble? Financial difficulties? Or is this about a relationship?" "Not trouble, Mother. Quite the opposite, actually." My father leaned forward. "What is this about Matilda?" Before I could answer, Lisa interjected. "She came to the airport in a chauffeured car. A private jet captain called her by name and escorted her away. She claims to be some executive at a company that provides private jets to the wealthy." "Claims," I echoed, raising an eyebrow. Ryan suddenly looked interested, lowering his phone. "Wait, you have access to private jets? Since when?" My mother's expression shifted from concern to confusion. "I do not understand. You work in customer service for an airline. You have mentioned dealing with passenger complaints and logistical issues." "I do work in aviation," I confirmed, "and I do handle client experiences, but my actual title is Executive Vice President of Global Operations at Reynolds Aviation. I oversee our entire client service division worldwide, managing a team of over 100 people across 12 countries." A heavy silence fell over the room. My father removed his reading glasses slowly. "Reynolds Aviation," he repeated. "Jack Reynolds' company, the one valued at over $2 billion after their partial IPO last year." Of course he would know the valuation. Yes, that Reynolds Aviation. And you are claiming to be an executive there, my mother asked, skepticism evident in her tone. Not claiming, mother. I am an executive there. Have been for several years. Lisa leaned forward. Then why pretend to be flying economy today? Why let us believe you were struggling financially all this time? Was it just to make us look foolish? There was genuine hurt beneath her accusation, which surprised me. I never said I was struggling, I pointed out. You all assumed that based on your preconceptions about my career path, I simply did not correct those assumptions. But why, my father pressed? Why the deception? I took a deep breath. It was not about deception, it was about boundaries. Every time I shared anything about my life, it was dismissed or criticized for not matching your definition of success. Eventually, I realized it was easier to keep my professional achievements private than to constantly defend them against your judgments. So, you let us think you were barely getting by, what, out of spite? Ryan asked incredulously. No, I said firmly. Out of self-preservation. I needed space to build my career without constantly being told it was inadequate compared to law or medicine or finance. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. And you staged this elaborate reveal today, to what end? To embarrass your sister. To shock us at your father's anniversary celebration. I met her gaze steadily. I did not plan to reveal anything today originally. I intended to come quietly celebrate with you and leave. But when Lisa took a photo of my economy boarding pass and sent it to the family chat to mock me, I decided perhaps it was time for the truth. Lisa had the grace to look slightly abashed, though she quickly recovered. I was not mocking you, I was just highlighting the contrast between your success and what you perceived as my failure. I finished for her, as you have done consistently for years. My father cleared his throat. Regardless of how this came about, I think we are all rather surprised by the revelation. What exactly does your position entail, Matilda? And what sort of compensation does such a role provide? Even now it came down to money and status in his mind. I manage our global client relations, ensuring that celebrities, business leaders, and high net worth individuals receive seamless private aviation experiences. As for compensation, I paused, considering how much to reveal. My base salary is in the mid-six figures, plus performance bonuses and equity in the company. Ryan whistled. Seriously, that is more than I make managing Dad's fund. And you have kept this from us for how long? My mother asked. I have been with Reynolds for 5 years. Started as a coordinator, worked my way up to my current position over time. 5 years, my father repeated, a note of disbelief still in his voice. And in all that time, you never thought to mention you were building a successful career. Would you have considered it successful? I asked genuinely. Or would you have found ways to diminish it because it was not the path you chose for me? He did not answer immediately, which was answer enough. Lisa was still processing. So when you came to Dad's birthday 5 years ago, and I made that comment about you handling lost luggage complaints, I had just been promoted to senior client manager and had coordinated a last-minute flight for the Secretary of State the day before I completed. And all those holidays you could not attend family gatherings because of work emergencies, my mother asked. Were actual work emergencies. The ultra-wealthy do not stop needing private jets for Christmas or Thanksgiving. In fact, those are our busiest periods. The room fell silent again, as they collectively recalibrated their understanding of me and my life. I waited, giving them time to process. Finally, my father spoke. I suppose congratulations are in order, Matilda. It seems you have built quite a successful career for yourself despite taking an unconventional path. There was a hint of grudging respect in his tone, though not quite full acceptance. Thank you, I said simply. My mother was still struggling. But why continue the pretense once you achieved such a position? Surely you knew we would be proud. Would you, mother? When have you ever expressed pride in anything I have done that did not conform to your expectations? The bluntness of my question seemed to startle her. She opened her mouth to object, then closed it again without speaking. Lisa, always quick to recover, was already recalculating our relationship in light of this new information. So this private jet you arrived on today, is that something you could arrange for family members as well? For business trips or vacations, perhaps? And there it was. The immediate pivot to how my success might benefit her. That would be an abuse of my position, I said firmly. Our aircraft are for clients who pay premium rates for their privacy and convenience. But surely exceptions could be made, she pressed. No, Lisa, they cannot. My professional integrity is not for sale, not even for family. Ryan snickered at Lisa's rebuke, while my father nodded, slightly, perhaps the first genuine sign of respect he had shown for my professional boundaries. The conversation might have continued, but Mrs. Peterson appeared at the door to announce that Marcus and Stephanie had arrived and the first guests would be appearing within the hour. The family meeting was temporarily adjourned, though I knew the revelations of the day would continue to reverberate throughout the weekend. As we filed out of the study, Lisa caught my arm. "We are not done discussing this," she said quietly. "I know," I replied. "But perhaps we can continue the conversation with less judgment and more openness on both sides." Her expression suggested she was not entirely ready for that approach, but she nodded curtly before rejoining her husband in the foyer. My phone vibrated with a text from Michael. "All good." I typed back quickly. "First round complete. More to come. Still standing." His response made me smile. "Never doubted you for a second." The anniversary celebration proceeded with all the elegance and precision my mother had planned. 200 guests from my parents' social and business circles mingled on the expansive lawn overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. A string quartet played softly near the rose garden. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres, prepared by a chef flown in from Manhattan, specifically for the occasion. I moved through the crowd with practiced ease, the social skills I had developed, handling billionaire clients serving me well in this environment. Several guests expressed surprise at seeing me, a few making polite inquiries about my life that revealed their low expectations. I answered truthfully, but without elaboration, not wanting to shift focus from my parents' celebration to my unexpected career success. As the evening progressed, I found a quiet moment alone on the terrace, watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and pink. My father's voice broke into my solitude. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, holding 2 glasses of scotch. He offered one to me, and I accepted it with a nod. We stood in silence for a moment, sipping the expensive liquor and watching the horizon. Finally he spoke. "I owe you an apology, Matilda." The words were so unexpected, I nearly choked on my drink. "For what specifically?" I asked, not unkindly, but wanting clarity. He gazed into his glass, swirling the amber liquid. "For underestimating you. For dismissing your choices. For making assumptions about your capabilities based on my own narrow definition of success." I studied his profile, noting new lines around his eyes and mouth that had not been there 5 years ago. "Thank you for saying that. I want you to know that I am proud of what you have accomplished," he continued. "Not because of the title or the money, though those are certainly impressive." He turned to face me directly. "I am proud of your independence, your resilience, your determination to build something on your terms without leveraging the family name or connections." The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard. I had prepared myself for many potential reactions, denial, dismissal attempts, to take credit for my success. Genuine respect had not been on that list. "That means a lot coming from you, Dad. I wish you had felt you could share your journey with us," he said, a note of regret, coloring his words. "I needed to prove something to myself first," I explained. "That I could succeed without the Anderson name opening doors. That I could build something meaningful on my own terms." "And have you proven that to your satisfaction now?" I nodded. "I have." "Then perhaps we can start fresh," he suggested. "Get to know the woman you have become, rather than holding on to outdated perceptions." Before I could respond, my mother appeared in the doorway. "James the photographer wants to take the family portrait before we lose the light entirely." She paused, noting our serious expressions. "Am I interrupting?" "Not at all, Eleanor," my father assured her. "Matilda and I were just having a long overdue conversation." About her secret career, I presume. My mother approached her posture perfect as always, but something different, almost vulnerable in her expression. Among other things, I acknowledged. "I owe you an apology as well," she said, surprising me for the second time that evening. I fear I have been overly critical of your choices because they differed from the path I envisioned for you. You wanted what you thought was best for me, I said, offering an olive branch. No, she contradicted me gently. I wanted what was familiar and comfortable for me. What matched my understanding of success? I never truly asked what you wanted or needed. She reached out hesitantly, taking my hand. I am sorry for that, Matilda. The simple physical contact so rare between us conveyed sincerity beyond her words. I squeezed her hand in acknowledgement. Thank you, Mom. Now, she said, straightening her shoulders and resuming her practical demeanor, though her eyes remained softer than before. We really must join the others for this photograph. Marcus is threatening to leave early to check on a patient, and Ryan has already had too much champagne. Some things never changed, and there was comfort in that continuity amidst all the other shifts occurring in our family dynamic. After the photographs were taken and the formal dinner served, I slipped away to a quiet corner of the garden to call Michael. How is it going? He asked when he answered. Surprisingly well, I told him. My parents have both apologized, which I think might be an unprecedented event in Anderson family history. His warm chuckle came through the line. I am glad to hear it. Does this mean you will be staying overnight as planned? Actually, I was thinking I might head back tonight if you are still willing to fly us home. I have made my peace, I think, but I am not ready for an extended family immersion just yet. The jet is fueled and ready whenever you are, he assured me. Just say the word. As I ended the call, I turned to find Lisa standing a few feet away, clearly having overheard at least part of my conversation. Leaving so soon, she asked, a hint of the old accusation in her tone. I came for the celebration. I have fulfilled that obligation. Obligation, she repeated. Is that all family is to you now? An obligation. I sighed, not wanting to end the evening with conflict. Walk with me, I suggested, gesturing toward the path that wound through my mother's prize roses. Somewhat to my surprise, she agreed, falling into step beside me. We walked in silence for a moment, the music from the party fading slightly as we moved farther from the main gathering. I want to understand, Lisa finally said. Why did you feel you needed to hide your success from me, specifically? We used to be close once before. Before I chose a different path I completed, and suddenly became less than in your eyes. That is not fair, she protested. Isn't it? When was the last time you asked about my job without a dismissive tone? When did you last share something about your life, without framing it as an achievement? I could not match. She started to object, then stopped, considering my words. Has my behavior really been that transparent? To me, yes. We grew up in the same household, Lisa. I recognize the patterns because I lived them too. She was quiet for several steps before speaking again. I suppose I have been rather insufferable, she admitted reluctantly, but you have to understand I have been working so hard to meet expectations. Dad's, Mom's, Richard's families. Sometimes it feels like I am constantly performing, constantly proving my worth through achievements and acquisitions. The vulnerability in her admission caught me off guard, and I opted out of that race entirely, I realized aloud. Exactly, she nodded. You just are walked away from it all. Made your own rules. I think part of me has been jealous of that freedom all along. Freedom, I echoed, surprised by her perception. I work 70-hour weeks sometimes. I have taken conference calls from every time zone. I have built my career through tremendous effort and sacrifice. Not that kind of freedom, Lisa clarified. The freedom to define success on your own terms, to step outside the Anderson script without apology. Her insight revealed a level of self-awareness I had not given her credit for possessing. I never thought of it that way, I admitted. And now you have achieved this incredible success anyway, but on your own terms, she continued. Do you know how maddening that is for someone who has followed all the rules, checked all the boxes, and still feels like she is barely keeping her head above water sometimes? The admission cost her something. I could see it in the tightness around her mouth, the slight flush on her cheeks. I had no idea you felt that way, I said softly. You always seemed so confident in your choices, so certain you had chosen the right path. I learned to project that certainty from watching Mom, Lisa said with a rueful smile. Fake it till you make it right. She paused, then asked, Are you happy, Maddie? Not just successful, but actually happy with your life. The question was sincere. Perhaps the first time in years she had asked something about my life without an agenda or comparison beneath it. I am, I answered honestly. I love my work. I have built meaningful relationships. I have created a life that feels authentic to me. Including the handsome captain waiting to fly you home tonight, she asked a hint of her old teasing tone, returning but without the edge that had characterized it in recent years. I felt a blush rise to my cheeks. His name is Michael. We have been together for almost a year. Serious. Yes. And you did not bring him tonight because... One revelation at a time seemed prudent, I said dryly. She laughed, a genuine sound I had not heard from her in too long. Fair enough. She hesitated then, added, I would like to meet him sometime. Properly, I mean. Not just as the captain who whisked my sister away at the airport. I would like that, I replied, meaning it. We had circled back toward the main garden, the lights from the party visible through the trees. Lisa stopped, turning to face me directly. I am sorry, Matilda. For the photo today. For the years of condescension. For not seeing you clearly. Thank you, I said, simply accepting her apology, without diminishing its significance by immediately offering absolution. Some healing would require time. I would like us to try again, she continued. To build a different kind of relationship. One with less competition and more support. I would like that too, I agreed. But it will require real changes, Lisa. Clear boundaries, mutual respect. I understand, she nodded. I am willing to try if you are. We rejoined the party separately, but something had shifted between us. A first step toward reconciliation that felt more meaningful than the grand revelation that had precipitated it. 2 hours later, after saying my goodbyes to my parents and enduring good-natured teasing from Ryan about holding out on us all this time, I slipped away from the celebration. The hired car took me back to the airport where Michael waited at the private terminal, his captain's uniform exchanged for casual clothes. Ready to go home, he asked, drawing me into a quick embrace. More than ready, I confirmed. As our jet lifted into the night sky, leaving behind the sprawling estate with its twinkling lights and picture-perfect celebration, I reflected on the day's events. The revelation of my professional success had forced a reckoning within my family, but the more significant revelations had come in the quieter moments afterward. My father's acknowledgement of his limited perspective, my mother's recognition of her controlling tendencies, Lisa's admission of her own insecurities beneath the perfect facade. None of us had been fully seen or understood by the others, each playing assigned roles in a family dynamic established long ago. Perhaps the greatest gift of the day was not the vindication of having my success recognized, but the opportunity to step outside those roles and begin to know each other as the adults we had become. 3 months later, much had changed. Weekly calls with my parents had replaced sporadic, tense interactions. Lisa and I met monthly for lunch, gradually rebuilding our sisterly bond through honest conversation rather than competition. I had invited my family to tour the Reynolds Aviation headquarters, allowing them to see my professional world firsthand. My mother had been particularly impressed by the operational complexity I managed daily, while my father had engaged Jack Reynolds in a lengthy discussion about business strategy that revealed genuine respect for the company I had helped build. And Michael had been welcomed into family gatherings without the pretense or judgment I had feared, his straightforward nature and quiet confidence earning quick approval even from my status-conscious relatives. Most significantly, I had accepted a new position as President of International Operations for Reynolds Aviation, a promotion Jack had been urging me to take for months. The role would require relocation to London for at least 2 years to establish our European headquarters. Michael had requested a transfer to captain our transatlantic fleet, aligning our professional and personal futures. The journey had taught me that true success could never be measured by titles or income alone. It resided in the courage to define and pursue one's own path, even when that path diverged from others' expectations. It lived in the authenticity of relationships based on mutual respect, rather than superficial comparisons or conditional approval. It flourished in the freedom to be fully oneself without apology or pretense. As I packed my office on my last day before the London transfer, Jack Reynolds stopped by to wish me well. "I knew from the day you offered me your personal tablet on that turbulent flight that you were something special," he said. "Not because of the gesture itself, but because you did it without calculation or expectation of return. You simply saw a need and addressed it authentically." "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to grow here," I replied, "for seeing potential in me that others missed." "You did the hard work," he countered. "I just provided the environment where your talents could flourish." His words crystallized something I had been reflecting on throughout the family reconciliation process. Sometimes the greatest gift we can offer others is the space to become their best selves without imposing our own vision of what that should look like. "Precisely," Jack agreed. "Remember that as you build your team in London?" I promised I would carrying that wisdom forward into my expanded leadership role and into my healing family relationships. Sometimes the most profound victory is not proving others wrong about you, but finding the freedom to stop needing their validation altogether. True success lies not in external recognition, but in the quiet confidence of knowing your own worth and living according to your deepest values. In that journey from seeking approval to self-acceptance, I had found something far more valuable than any title or achievement, the authentic self I had always been meant to become. Have you ever experienced a moment where you finally stood in your truth after hiding part of yourself from family or friends? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories about finding your authentic path. Remember, sometimes the real power comes not from proving others wrong, but from discovering you no longer need their validation to feel complete. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you courage on your own journey to authenticity.